Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the March 2024 SBIF rollout. We'll get started in just a few moments. For everybody on the call today, you will be getting a copy of the presentation via email. Additionally, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to put them in the Q&A box and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. We'll get started in just a moment. Good afternoon, everyone, and again, welcome to the March 2024 SBIF District Rollout. My name is Kim Brisky. I am with Summer Corps, who is the administrator of the SBIF program. Welcome today. Everybody here who is attending will receive a copy of the presentation via email. You can also rewatch the recording on DPD's YouTube page. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to put them in the Q&A chat box on the screen. And without further delay, we will get started. I'm going to turn it over to Nora Curry with the Department of Planning and Development to get us started. Thanks, Nora.
Thank you, Kim. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Kim said, my name is Nora Curry. I'm the SBIF Program Director for the City of Chicago Department of Planning and Development. And Summer Corps, our SBIF Administrator, will be making the presentation today, but I wanted to start out by welcoming you to the webinar and telling you a little bit about the program. The Small Business Improvement Fund, known as SBIF, provides grants to small businesses and property owners to make needed improvements to their property. And over the last few years, we've made a lot of exciting changes to the program, including adding a lot of funding to it, and so that TIFs across the city can benefit, and making the grants bigger and helping you with a higher percentage of your project costs. One of the things that we offer with SBIF is technical assistance. It's a key strength of the program. And you'll notice that the initial SBIF application is fairly simple. And as you go through the process, you're asked for more information. And during that process, Summer Corps can help you, can help explain what those things are and answer questions. So Summer Corps is very important, and I urge you to use that project manager. Your program, if you apply, your application will go to a project manager, and that person is there to process your application and to answer your questions. And my advice is always to make sure you are always communicating with them. Should you run into any kind of problem with your permits or with your contractors or any of that, or if you go very smoothly, it's always a great idea to keep your project manager, your Summer Corps project manager, involved, because they can help you with those issues you might have or answer your questions throughout the process, and they're happy to do that. Another great resource is your local delegate agency. Sylvia will talk about those folks. They may be the people who let you know about this webinar. Your local Chamber of Commerce, a community development corporation, they are also there to help you, and most of them have a lot of experience with SBIF applications. And so if there's anything that's not clear to you or a form that you need some help with, they are there to help you as well. The city pays them to do that. That support is free. So with that, we're eager to get on with the show, and we're eager to see your applications and hopefully support the growth of your communities. And with that, I'm happy to introduce Sylvia Roscoe, the SBIF Director for Summer Corps. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Nora. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. As Nora mentioned, my name is Sylvia Roscoe. I am the Director of the Small Business Improvement Fund program through Summer Corps. Summer Corps is a not-for-profit organization. We are a small business lender. We offer SBA loans. We administer the SBIF program as well as the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund program. Now in its 25th year, Summer Corps is SBIF is one of the longest running and most successful city programs. We've helped retain and expand small businesses throughout the entire city of Chicago, with dispersing over $118 million to over 1,900 businesses. So please be advised that this is a non-residential program. Residents do not qualify. The grant cannot be used for capital or operating expenses. It is specifically for infrastructure repairs. So we'll go ahead and get started with today's presentation. Today, we will go over what is SBIF, what is the program mission, and grant parameters. Getting started. Is your business or property in a SBIF district? Which SBIF districts are open or on deck? What are the SBIF program rules? How do you apply? What are the resources available to you? We will also have a March rollout information and sample project, SBIF facts, and an additional question and answer session once the presentation is complete. Launched in 1999, the city's Small Business Improvement Fund program promotes economic development by providing small businesses and landlords with reimbursement grants for permanent building improvement costs. Residential projects are not eligible. SBIF grants use local tax increment financing, TIF, revenue to reimburse grantees for the pre-approved repair or rehab of their business facilities or adjacent land acquisition. Summer Corps is a program administrator. We're contracted by the city's Department of Planning and Development. Grant parameters. Eligible applicants include those that have a property that's located within a specific TIF district where SBIF funds are available and the SBIF is authorized to accept applications. Landlords are eligible of either commercial or industrial properties. Business owners of commercial or industrial businesses who either own or lease their place of business. Tenants with prior written approval from property owners are also eligible, as well as startups. Startups may apply with a business plan. Keep in mind that a city business license will be required prior to final disbursement. What are the eligibility limits? If you are a commercial tenant or owner occupied, on average, your gross sales must be $9 million or less. If you're a landlord of a commercial or industrial property, your cumulative net worth must be less than $9 million and liquidity must be less than $500,000 per individual in order to qualify. You are an industrial tenant or owner occupied, must have 200 or fewer full-time employees. All owner-occupied properties are subject to both tenants and landlord requirements. The maximum grant allowed under SBIF is $250,000 per industrial property. $150,000 is the max for a single owner or tenant of a commercial property or a landlord of a commercial property. $250,000 is the max that may be granted per multiple owners or tenants of a commercial property, with $75,000 being the max assistance per each tenant or landlord that applies. The applicants may receive one or more grants up to their maximum program assistance. Once this maximum is reached, the applicants will need to wait 3 years to reapply. Percentage of eligible project costs that can be reimbursed for commercial businesses, those that sales or net worth fall between $0 to $3 million will qualify for 90% of eligible cost. Those that have sales or net worth between $3 to $6 million qualify for 60% reimbursement of eligible cost. And those whose sales or net worth are between 6 to 9 million qualify for 30% reimbursement of eligible cost. All industrial businesses qualify for 50% reimbursement of eligible cost. Here we have a SBIF grant calculation example. Let's say that Grace submits an application for a SBIF grant in an open district with a total eligible project cost of $100,000. She's proposing to make permanent building improvements to her existing retail shop, for which she is a tenant. Grace has been in business for 5 years. Over the last 3 years, her gross sales averaged $1.5 million. Here we have a breakdown of eligible costs as follows. Total eligible project costs are at $100,000. As a commercial tenant applicant with gross sales under $3 million, she qualifies for a 90% rebate grant. The city's responsibility at 90% is $90,000, leaving the applicant's responsibility at 10% at $10,000. Please keep in mind that the SBIF program is a reimbursement grant, so project participants should be prepared with financing to support the permanent building improvements upfront. The SBIF program is a reimbursement grant, so project participants should be prepared with financing to support the cost of the building improvements. All applicants are encouraged to contact their business lender or reach out to one of the lenders listed on the Summer Corps website in a timely manner. Grantees may choose to complete their project in phases rather than requiring 100% of the upfront cost of the project. To participate, the grantees must receive an approval for the full scope of work and the phase work schedule. Construction timing will be completed based on necessity and the contractor's recommendations. Receiving phase disbursements will be based on progress or completion of eligible construction work. Here we have an example of a phased project. So the approved scope of work includes a complete roof tear off, a new HVAC system, and facade renovations. So the contract price here is at $180,000. With a 90% rebate, the maximum the applicant can receive is up to $150,000. So we're going to divide the projects into 3 phases here. So the first project to be completed is the roofing project. With the $60,000 price tag, 90% reimbursement, the applicant will receive a reimbursement of $54,000. The remaining funds will then be held until the next project is complete. Once the applicant receives reimbursement for the roofing project, they can then move forward with the HVAC system. With the cost of $40,000 and 90% rebates, they will be getting back $36,000. They can then move forward with the third phase of the project to cover the facade renovations. So keep in mind that they, must have financing available, but we can work with them to divide it in phases so that they're not required to have the full 100% cost up front. SBIF project timeline. Once we start the process, the applicant's eligibility review, they are granted 20 days to submit any application materials that are requested, which does include proof of site control. If all is deemed eligible, they will be moved into stage 2. This is the project eligibility review, where they are required to submit their plans, bids, and specifications are obtained at this point, and any debts are cured. They're granted up to 120 days for stage 2. Moving forward to stage 3, this is the project construction phase. Once they are approved by DPD, the applicants will receive a conditional commitment letter and construction can begin. Concurrently with the proof of permits or permit must be submitted within 120 days following the date of the commitment letter. This will be up to 10 months for the stage 3 entirely. Proof of financing will also be required within 120 days of approval. So this can be a letter of commitment from a bank statements that you have available showing your available funds, something of that nature to prove that you have the financing in order to keep the application active. Once everything is completed, we have proof of payment documentations. We send that information over to the City of Chicago for processing. This is the reimbursement phase. Payment documentation, including sworn statements, invoices, canceled checks, waivers of lien. These are all sent to Summer Corps for review. After a final site visit and processing of documents, the reimbursement check will be delivered within 4 to 6 weeks. Unless DPD has granted an extension, applicants who do not complete each stage within the required phase time limits will be disqualified and removed from the program. Is your business or property in a SBIF district? You can visit our website at chicago.gov/SBIF to see if your property is in a district. Once you get to this page, you can click on number 1 to confirm your business is in a SBIF district. Once you click here, it's going to take you to the SBIF locator tool. You will then enter your property address here. And the next slide here is going to give you detailed information pertaining to that specific property. It'll tell you if it's in a TIF district and also give you the delegate agency's contact information, as well as a rollout date as to when the district is scheduled to open to accept applications. Which SBIF districts are open or on deck? Eligible SBIF districts in Chicago span neighborhoods on the north, south, and west sides. Each month marks a new 30-day period in which SBIF districts with available funds open for applications. Notice of district openings are provided to relevant aldermen, posted on DPD and Summer Corps' websites, and included in the SBIF grid. You can visit our website for the most up-to-date list of open and on-deck districts. What are the SBIF program rules? What businesses and organization types are ineligible to apply? Those include chain and franchise businesses, places of worship, liquor stores, nightclubs, gas stations, those types of businesses. This list is not all inclusive, so if you're unsure, you can always reach out to Summer Corps and we can verify eligibility. What improvement costs are eligible for SBIF? We can cover the roof and facade, components of signs or awnings which are permanently affixed to the building, any alterations or structures that are needed for ADA compliance, including any rails or ramps, also door widenings for ADA accessibility to restrooms can be covered as well. HVAC and other mechanical systems, plumbing and electrical work, certain project-related architectural and construction management fees that are related to the project can also be covered. Certain environmental remediation measures, permanent interior renovations, including fixtures, and the purchase of adjacent land parcels for purposes of expansion or parking. This list is not all comprehensive. If you had something in mind, feel free to reach out to us and we can let you know if we can cover those items. What improvement costs are ineligible for SBIF funding? New construction, whether it's an addition or expansion from the ground up, is not eligible. Any standalone minor repairs or cosmetic improvements, any equipment-related expenses such as kitchen appliances, computers, or office furniture. The few things that we can cover that are sort of equipment-related, we can cover for restaurants or commercial kitchens, including walk-in coolers or freezers, any fire suppression systems, and exhaust hoods can be covered. Back to improvements that are not eligible for SBIF include planters surrounding or affixed to the building, any outdoor dining or drinking areas, including roof decks, beer gardens, outdoor patios, balconies, awnings, porches, and decks. Any fencing, including pergolas, trellises, arbors, privacy screens, and similar structures are not eligible. Parking lot construction or repairs, landscaping, and work on the interior of residential units do not qualify for SBIF. What are the design requirements? Applicants for commercial properties that are seeking a grant of $25,000 or greater are required to make at least one exterior improvement using at least 10% of the maximum grant amount. To receive project approval from DPD, improvements must conform to DPD's design guidelines. Applicants are strongly encouraged to consult with Summer Corps and design professionals on design requirements and guidelines before drawing up plans for work. Key exterior design guidelines that DPD will review during the approval phase include preserving or recreating the original design and window openings when possible, incorporating permanent signage to clearly identify the business, adequate lighting, especially near entrances to welcome customers, avoid window clutter. Windows should let in the natural light and attract passerbys to the business. Please refer to BACP's guidelines for on-premises window signs for more information. Other forms of security are preferred, but if necessary, only interior mounted security gates that are integrated into the storefront design will be reimbursed. What applicant compliance measures are in place? Checks will be performed on all applicants during the approval stage to ensure that they are complying with child support laws and not indebted to the city. Any scofflaw debt must be cured to participate in SBIF. Applicants can cure the debt via a city payment plan. Applicants using a payment plan must be in compliance with that to receive any SBIF reimbursement funds. All applicants must be current on property taxes prior to any reimbursements and also prior to approval. Each applicant must sign an economic disclosure affidavit. The grantees must sign an affidavit certifying that they will not relocate out of the TIF district or sell the business within a 3-year period following disbursement of funds. To be reimbursed, landlord applicants must have an executed lease with a qualified tenant, and the tenant must be occupying and actively operating their business or nonprofit out of the lease space. How do you apply? You can visit our website at summercore.com/SBIF to complete the SBIF application within the designated open acceptance period. Please allow 2 business days for SummerCore to confirm receipt of your application via an email response. If you do not receive an email confirmation within this time, please send an email to spiff@summercore.com or call the general line at 312-360-3300. Applicants are responsible for making sure submissions are received within the open acceptance period. Applications received after 5 p.m. on the last day of the acceptance period will not be eligible. What resources are available to help? Again, you can visit our website to access resources to support your SBIF project. You can also connect with your local delegate agency for assistance in filling out your application. There's also the list of lenders that we've mentioned previously that have worked with some of our SBIF recipients in the past. They are familiar with the program. We are happy to speak to any of your lenders if they want to learn more about the SBIF program in general or want to know more about the process overall. So please feel free to check out these additional resources. Get to know your local delegate agency. These organizations are assigned to assist small businesses in the SBIF districts that are opening in March. So these should be local to your area, depending on where your property is located. But please feel free to reach out for assistance. Here we have the list of districts that are open for the month of March. We are accepting applications now through March 30th at 5 p.m. These districts include 63rd and Pulaski, Cicero and Archer, Peterson Pulaski, West Irving Park, and Western Avenue North. This critical information for applicants in expiring TIF districts. The 63rd and Pulaski, 63rd Archer, Peterson Pulaski, West Irving Park, and Western Avenue North TIF districts are set to expire at the end of the year. When the TIFs expire, the SBIF funds will be liquidated and the districts will no longer exist. The time frame for SBIF applicants in these districts will be shortened to ensure each applicant can successfully complete their project. Extensions will only be provided under extreme circumstances if the timing allows the project to be completed. All approved projects must be fully completed by November 15th 2024 to allow time for processing prior to expiration. Here we have a sample project in Western Mew Park. This is Pintadito Gourmet at 4315 North Central Avenue. This is a nice cafe shop which recently reapplied for SBIF to expand into the adjacent space. So they did a complete build out of the cafe and realized that they needed more space. So they went ahead and applied for SBIF again to build out the adjacent storefronts. They did some masonry work to demolish and install the new facade, including a new aluminum storefront window system, roof carpentry and finishes, new HVAC, electrical and plumbing improvements, along with the installation of a commercial exhaust system and architectural services, along with the permit fees were covered with this project. What additional documents should you have on hand to submit along with the SBIF application? While it's not required when submitting the initial application form, please note that these items are required to complete the SBIF application process. The required documents vary depending on the applicant type. If you are a business owner, would you request copies of the business tax returns, a license for your business, things of that nature? We do require site control, whether it's the proof of ownership if you own the property, or a lease agreement if you are currently a tenant. Some of these items will be requested of you and some forms will be provided to you to be completed and returned. SBIF program facts. Are startups or new businesses eligible? Yes, most startups can apply. Startup applicants will need to supply a detailed business plan and projections of the business's income and expenses for its first 36 months of operation as part of their application materials. The City of Chicago reserves the right to impose additional conditions or funding in connection with startup business applications. If you have only been in business for 1 to 2 years, SummerCore requires tax returns and a projection of gross sales to equal 3 years of date. Am I eligible if I live outside of Chicago? The important consideration is where you have your business or property. To participate in SBIF, your property must be in the City of Chicago, as the funding source comes from the City of Chicago property taxes. If you live in another area, please call your city's planning, economic development, or community development department to see what other programs may be available to assist small business. What if my building has both business and residential spaces? This program is primarily for business use, but there are mixed use exceptions. For these buildings, many envelope projects such as roofing, facade improvements, and tuck pointing can be eligible. Will there be enough SBIF funds for all applicants? Each tax increment financing TIF district that has a SBIF program authorized in it has limited funds reserved for the program. If demand for the SBIF funds is greater than the available funding supply, then a lottery will be conducted to determine the order in which each grant application may be accommodated. If any surplus funds become available, they will be allocated to the waitlisted applicants. Can SBIF be used with other City of Chicago grant programs? The answer is no. SBIF cannot be used at the same time as a Neighborhood Opportunity Fund or Chicago Recovery Plan grant on the same project covering the same work. However, you may apply for multiple grants at the same time and excuse me. And select the best fit for your project, provided that you stay within the grant timeline requirements. Is there SBIF funding available in my district? Every SBIF area has its own budget and the city refills it if it has TIF funds available and if there's a demonstrated need for more grant money. We also maintain an interested parties list for funds, which you can also send an email to spiff@summercorps.com to join. When more funding becomes available or the city allocates more funds, we will let you know. The interested parties list helps the city of Chicago gauge demand for additional funding. What if I am in a TIF district and it is not SBIF? Tax increment financing is the mechanism that funds the Small Business Improvement Fund program. So if you are in a TIF district and it does not have a SBIF, please contact your alderman. Thank you for your time today. Here we have our contact information for the SBIF team, as well as Nora Curry from the Department of Planning and Development. We have 2 websites here. Please keep in mind that Google Translate is also available on these cities' websites. References are available in other languages. Resources, are available in other languages. A copy of the presentation and a link to the video will be emailed to all attendees.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sylvia. And for everybody here who's listening on the call right now, feel free. This is a great time to put your Q&As in the box, and we'll be happy to answer those questions now. I always like to start the discussion, Sylvia, if you wouldn't mind, can you share sort of just the most common challenges that you see for SBIF applicants during the program?
Sure. So some of the biggest challenges for the applicants are upfront financing and also contracting a good contractor. So we know that, sometimes people don't have the money readily available to them. Don't feel discouraged. You can still apply even if you don't have the financing available right now. However, we do want you to start that process as soon as possible. So it's never too early to start reaching out to banks. Keep in mind that construction loans are available, maybe credit lines are available. You can work on the financing as soon as possible, but that's one of the biggest challenge. Secondly, also contractors, finding a good contractor. I do want people to be careful with, there's a lot of fraud and scams going on. So we have a list available for informational purposes only. We don't endorse any of the applicants. However, this is just for informational purposes only. So you guys can use that list, determine whether or not this contractor is a good fit for you, but just be careful with any contractors that may reach out directly to you.
Great. Could you dig a little bit deeper into the requirements for the projects for this district rollout that are going to be expiring? The TIF's going to be expiring in December. Can you talk a little bit more in detail about how that's going to impact the deadlines and what applicants should expect?
Yes. So with the TIFs expiring at the end of the year, we do have to move fairly quickly. So the deadlines will be adjusted. So typically, for stage 1, we'll give 20 days to applicants to complete the application. So we think that's fair. The 20 days will be granted. However, typically in stage 2, we grant 120 days. We might cut this to maybe 60 days. 90 days, just so we can get everything into the city to present it for approval. Have you guys, quickly, once you guys are approved, to get started with the permit process, just to make sure that everything is completed prior to November 15th. So that November 15th date allows the city of Chicago to receive the information to be processed and make sure that the reimbursement is processed before the TIF expires. Once that TIF expires, it no longer exists. There's no more money available. So unfortunately, we cannot provide any further extensions besides the, past the November 15th deadline. So we want to work with you guys, but want you to really manage expectations. If you're looking to do a massive project that just probably won't finish up by that time, depending on the circumstances, maybe try to scale down that project, but we can work with you, figure out exactly what it is that you're doing, and, try to get things done in a timely manner.
Appreciate that. Just a couple of quick notes that I can answer really quickly. Somebody wanted to know if they can rewatch this presentation. Yes, it will be available on DPD's YouTube page. Will you receive a copy? Yes, you will. Anybody who registered for this event will get an email copy of this presentation. Somebody asking if there's a list of resources for loans. Yes, we do have on the Summer Core page actually a list of lenders who have participated in the SBIF program before. All right, going back to the questions here, if the tenant is applying for SBIF at a property, can that building's owner also apply? How would those two applications work together, or will they not?
Yes, they can work together. So in this case, if there is a multi-tenant building, the landlord and the tenants looking to apply, they can both submit an application and they will be capped at $75,000 each. As a landlord applying, the landlord does have the option to complete an affidavit, basically having the property treated as a single tenant. That way the landlord can decide, I'm going to utilize the $150,000 and update the property as they see fit. So that is an option based off of, whether or not the landlord applies. They can decide if they want to take the full 150 or divide it amongst the two.
Great, appreciate that. Let's see. So the question for an industrial is 200 employees the maximum per site or per organization? So is it for the entire business or just, let's say, at that one particular building?
It is for the entire business.
Can you just, again, sort of remind us, what are the requirements for startup businesses if they wanted to apply?
Startup businesses, we require a business plan and projections of income and expenses for the next 36 months of operation. If they haven't been in business, or if they've been in business for a year or two, they can submit the tax returns that they have on file and submit the projections for the next year or two, depending on, how many years they filed the tax returns. But we do need at least 3 years of data at that point. We can move forward with the process if they're not licensed. However, they do have to be licensed prior to receiving their final reimbursement.
Great. I've had a couple of questions talking about sort of some smaller specific cosmetic upgrades. Can you talk a little bit about how those would ever be eligible in SBIF if you wanted just to do your flooring? Is that something that you could do? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So SBIF does not cover any cosmetic upgrades. So if we go into a building and, they just have an old, outdated color paint and outdated floors, if there's no actual limitations on functionality throughout the space, we wouldn't be able to just apply a new coat of paint and put in a new flooring just to make it look prettier. However, if it is related to a larger project, we can cover those items. So let's say, for example, the flooring is damaged. There's subflooring at the bottom underneath that needs to be replaced. We can work with you on that. If there's water damage to the walls, if you're changing the layout of the building itself, we can definitely cover those items. If there's a larger build out, we can definitely cover the flooring and the painting of it as well.
So the key probably is to ask those questions to their project manager to make sure things can be covered, but to know that this is not about cosmetic improvements. This is about, major structural improvements and work to improve the building, both exterior and interior. I think it's important just to reiterate, we had somebody ask if they can apply for this in a couple of years down the road. Can you just sort of reiterate again, sort of what it means for these TIF districts to be expiring and how that will impact the SBIF program?
Sure. So there are a few TIF districts that are set to expire at the end of this year. So once those are expired, excuse me, that's it. There's no more reopening the TIF district at all. So they basically missed their shot. And with the SBIF program, every month we have anywhere ranging from maybe 5 to 10 different TIF districts at any given time that are open during that 30-day acceptance period. So we put together the calendar for the year, and depending on if there's funding available, if there's demand, we may or may not open up that district within maybe a 6-month time frame or a year's time frame. but there's just no guarantee at that point. You know, in 2 years, we just don't know if there's going to be SBIF money available, if the TIF account itself is going to have enough increment to allocate to SBIF. So if you have the opportunity, I suggest you take.
Great. And I think probably here just about the last question is, can you talk a little bit about site control? Specifically, we had somebody who's a startup business that doesn't currently have a location. So they're wondering if they could apply now. But can you talk about sort of what the deadlines would be when it comes to site control?
Sure. So site control is really important. We want to know that you have the site control, obviously, and, you know, you can submit an application. However, there is a requirement for you to provide a lease agreement or proof of ownership if you're looking to purchase the building itself. We want to make sure that you have the authority to be in this space, you know, that the landlord signs off on it. So if you're tenants, we do require a executed lease agreement. So after the open acceptance period, we determine whether or not we need to conduct a lottery. So we'll keep you up to date on that, if it needs to happen or not. So if we're able to move forward with your application, you're granted 20 days to submit any additional application materials, which will include site control. So within a 20-day time frame, you'd have to have your executed lease agreement if you are a tenant, and also an affidavit to be completed by the landlord, basically giving you approval to do renovations to his place. And this is a minimum term of a 3-year lease going forward. And this is basically to protect the tenant so that you can utilize the space that you are investing in, and the landlord can't come and say, you know what, you improved my space, I can get double the rent. You know, now I'm going to ask for the place back. So we want you to enjoy the space and, you know, enjoy where you've invested in for a minimum of at least 3 years.
That's great. So just as we wrap up here, as a reminder, everybody who is registered for the presentation today will get a copy of it via email. Additionally, you're welcome to go to DPD's YouTube page to re-watch this presentation. Also, if you have any other questions, as always, you can send an email to spiff@summercore.com. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing your applications.
Thank you.